Imagine a sponge diver sinking through dark blue water off the coast of a small Greek island. Below him, the seafloor is silent. No sound except his own breathing. No movement except the slow drift of sand. Then out of the darkness, shapes begin to appear. A bronze arm, a marble head, the broken cargo of a ship that disappeared more than 2,000 years ago. At first, it looks like treasure, statues, pottery, coins. But then, among the wreckage, someone brings up something strange. A corroded lump of bronze and wood, green with age, cracked by time, and so damaged that no one truly understands what it is. For decades, it sits almost unnoticed, a forgotten object from a forgotten ship, until scientists look inside, and what they find does not look ancient. It looks like machinery, tiny gears, interlocking wheels, precision engineering, a device that could track the heavens, predict eclipses, and follow the movements of the sun and moon. A machine from a time when, according to the simple version of history, machines like this were not supposed to exist, and that is where the mystery begins. Because scattered across museums, deserts, tombs, shipwrecks, and ancient ruins are objects that seem to whisper the same unsettling question. What did our ancestors really know? Some of these artifacts have clear scientific explanations. Others are surrounded by myths, exaggerations, and theories that go far beyond the evidence. But even when the wildest claims are removed, something remains, a strange feeling, a gap in the story, a moment where the past does not behave the way we expect it to. Tonight, we are entering that gap, not to prove that ancient people had alien technology, not to claim that science is wrong, but to look carefully at 5 artifacts that continue to disturb the timeline, challenge our assumptions, and remind us that human history is far stranger than we were taught. The first object is small enough to fit in your hands. It is made of wood. It has wings, and it was found in Egypt. In 1898, inside a tomb near Saqqara, archaeologists discovered a carved object shaped like a bird. At first glance, it seemed simple. A toy, perhaps. A symbolic offering. A small wooden figure made from sycamore, with a body, wings, and a tail. But when people looked closer, something felt unusual. The wings were not shaped like the wings of a normal bird statue. They stretched out almost straight, like the wings of a glider. The body had a smooth aerodynamic form. The tail rose upright, almost like the vertical stabilizer on an aircraft. To some observers, it did not look like a bird. It looked like a model airplane. And here is where the story becomes dangerous. Because ancient Egypt was a civilization of stone temples, pyramids, papyrus, and gods carved into walls. It was not a civilization of flight, at least not according to accepted history. There were no engines, no runways, no evidence of aircraft, no factories building machines that could rise into the sky. And yet, the Saqqara bird sits there, quiet and strange, looking as if someone carved the idea of flight long before humans were supposed to understand it. Some believe the artifact is proof that ancient Egyptians had advanced aerodynamic knowledge. They argue that its shape is too specific, too balanced, too similar to a glider to be accidental. They imagine priests, engineers, or forgotten inventors experimenting with models, perhaps watching them sail through desert air. Others go further, suggesting that the Egyptians may have inherited knowledge from an older, lost civilization. But scientists are far more cautious. They point out that birds were powerful symbols in Egyptian culture. Falcons, especially, were linked to gods, kingship, and the sky. A wooden bird placed in a tomb may have had religious meaning. It may have represented the soul. It may have been a child's toy. It may simply be an artistic form that modern people are misreading because we live in the age of airplanes. And recent aerodynamic studies have not confirmed that the object could fly properly as a glider. That should end the mystery, but it doesn't completely, because the strange part is not that the Saqqara bird proves ancient aviation. It does not. The strange part is that even a simple symbolic object can make us realize how easily we project our modern world onto the past. We see wings and we think aircraft. We see shape and we think engineering. We see mystery and we rush to fill the silence. Maybe the Saqqara bird is nothing more than a sacred bird. Maybe it is a toy. Maybe it is a forgotten experiment. Or maybe it is a reminder that ancient imagination was not primitive. That long before humans built airplanes, they were already dreaming of flight. And sometimes a dream can look very much like a machine. But if the Saqqara bird opens the door to the sky, The next artifact takes us somewhere darker, into a museum basement in Iraq, into clay, copper, iron, and a question that still sparks debate. In the 1930s, near Baghdad, archaeologists found a group of strange jars. Each one was made of clay. Inside was a copper cylinder. Inside that was an iron rod. The parts were sealed with asphalt. To most people, it looked like a container, but to some researchers, it looked like something else, a battery. The object became famous as the Baghdad Battery, although even that name is controversial. If the jar had been filled with an acidic liquid, like vinegar or wine, the copper and iron could have created a small electrical current, a tiny current. Not enough to power a city, not enough to light a temple, but possibly enough to produce a weak electrochemical reaction. And that possibility changed everything. Because if ancient people were using electricity, even in a basic way, then the story of technology becomes more complicated. Some believe these jars may have been used for electroplating, coating objects with thin layers of metal. Others imagine them used in rituals, producing a strange sensation or mysterious effect. A priest could touch two metal contacts and feel a faint shock. To ancient eyes, that might have seemed like divine power. Picture it, a dim chamber, oil lamps flickering on mud brick walls, a priest holding a small object that tingles with invisible force. No lightning in the sky, no fire, no moving parts, just a hidden energy no one can see. That image is powerful, maybe too powerful, because skeptics argue there is no strong evidence the jars were used as batteries. No wires were found with them, no clear written instructions, no confirmed electroplated objects that prove this was their purpose. The jars may have been storage vessels. They may have held scrolls. They may have had a ritual or medicinal function completely unrelated to electricity. Scientists suggest that just because an object can produce voltage in a modern experiment does not mean ancient people used it that way. A lemon can also generate electricity. That does not make every ancient lemon a battery. And this is the heart of the debate. The Baghdad Battery is not impossible because science cannot explain it. Science can explain the chemistry quite well. The mystery is historical. It asks whether ancient craftspeople discovered a phenomenon without fully understanding it, or whether modern people are forcing a technological meaning onto an ordinary object. Some believe the artifact reveals a lost chapter of ancient electrical knowledge. Others argue it reveals something about us, our hunger to find modern technology in ancient hands. But the jar remains strange because it sits exactly between those worlds. It is not proof of ancient power grids. It is not proof of electric temples. But it is also not easy to dismiss completely, because ancient people were observant. They worked with metals, acids, pigments, and minerals. They noticed reactions. They experimented. They did not need modern textbooks to discover strange effects. And maybe that is the real secret. Not that the ancient world had our technology, but that it had its own science, one built from touch, flame, metal, water, and patience. The next artifact does not come from a tomb or a jar. It comes from paper, a map, and perhaps no ancient map has caused more wild speculation than the Piri Reis map. In 1513, an Ottoman admiral and cartographer named Piri Reis created a world map using older sources. Only part of it survives today. It shows parts of Europe, Africa, and the coast of South America with surprising detail for its time. But one section became famous for a much stranger reason. Some people claim the map showed Antarctica centuries before it was officially discovered. Even more shocking, they argued it showed Antarctica without ice. If true, that would be astonishing. It would mean someone had mapped a frozen continent before modern exploration. It would suggest access to lost geographical knowledge. Perhaps ancient sailors had crossed oceans far earlier than accepted. Perhaps a vanished civilization had charted the world before rising seas erased its memory. The idea spread because it was irresistible. A map from 1513, a hidden southern land, a coast that looked to some like Antarctica. But here's where it gets strange. The more carefully experts studied the map, the less impossible it became. Many historians argue that the mysterious southern coastline is not Antarctica at all. It may be a distorted version of South America, or a representation of the old idea of Terra Australis, a hypothetical southern landmass that mapmakers believed must exist to balance the world. In other words, it may not be a secret record of Antarctica. It may be a mixture of real coastlines, copied sources, imagination, and map-making tradition. But that does not make it ordinary, because the Piri Reis map still reveals something remarkable. The early modern world was more connected than we often imagine. Information traveled, sailors shared routes, captured maps changed hands, empires collected knowledge like treasure. Every coastline on that parchment is a trace of risk, ships crossing unknown waters, navigators measuring stars, men sailing into storms with maps that were part science, part rumor, part prayer. Some believe the map points to lost ancient sources. Others argue it is a brilliant but human creation, built from the knowledge available in its time. Science does not need Antarctica to make the map amazing. The real mystery is how knowledge survives. A map can outlive the people who made it. A coastline can be copied from one chart to another until no one remembers the original voyage. A mistake can become a legend. A legend can become a theory. A theory can become a doorway into the unknown. And the Piri Reis map stands in that doorway, not as proof of a lost super-civilization, but as evidence that history is not a straight line. It is a palimpsest, a surface written over again and again where older truths still bleed through. But if maps can confuse us, objects with no explanation can haunt us even more. Across the former Roman Empire, especially in northwestern Europe, archaeologists have found small bronze objects that look almost too strange to be real. They are hollow. They have 12 pentagonal faces. Each face has a circular hole. Each corner has a small rounded knob. They are called Roman dodecahedra, and no one knows for sure what they were used for. This is not a fringe mystery built only on internet speculation. It is a real archaeological puzzle. More than 100 have been found. They date mainly from the Roman period. They are often beautifully made, and yet ancient texts do not explain them. Roman art does not clearly show them. No instruction manual survives. No inscription says, "This is what I am." They are silent. And that silence is powerful. Some believe they were tools, perhaps measuring devices, perhaps rangefinders used by soldiers, perhaps instruments for surveying land. The different hole sizes suggest function, as if someone designed them for a practical purpose. Others argue they may have been candle holders, gaming pieces, religious objects, or devices connected to astrology. Some even suggest they were used for knitting gloves, though skeptics point out that this theory raises its own problems. Scientists and archaeologists tend to favor caution. They do not deny the mystery. They simply refuse to fill it with certainty, and that may be why the Roman dodecahedron is so fascinating. It does not look supernatural. It looks designed. It looks intentional. Every face is shaped. Every hole is placed. Every knob has been formed with care. This was not accidental scrap metal. Someone wanted this object to exist. But why? Imagine holding one in your hand. Cold bronze, 12 sides, holes of different sizes, a shape associated in ancient philosophy with the cosmos itself. Plato connected the dodecahedron with the universe. Later thinkers saw geometry as a bridge between matter and divine order. Was it a tool? A symbol? A ritual object? A luxury item? A teaching device? The maddening answer is that it may have been any of these, or none of them. The dodecahedron challenges a modern assumption that every object must have an obvious function. We look at the past like a puzzle box, expecting each piece to click neatly into place. But ancient life was full of meanings that were never written down because everyone at the time already understood them. A wedding ring does not explain itself. A religious charm does not come with a label. A child's toy can look meaningless after 17 centuries. The Roman dodecahedron may not be advanced technology. It may not rewrite science, but it does something equally unsettling. It proves that an empire we think we know can still place an object in our hands and say nothing. And sometimes silence is the deepest mystery of all. But now we return to the sea, to the shipwreck, to the bronze machine that forced scientists to rewrite what ancient engineering could be. The Antikythera mechanism is perhaps the most extraordinary ancient artifact ever found. When it was first recovered from the shipwreck near Antikythera in 1901, it did not look like much. It was a lump of corroded bronze fused and broken by time. For years, it was overshadowed by statues and other treasures from the wreck. Then researchers began to see gear teeth, not one gear, many. As imaging technology improved, the hidden structure emerged. The device contained a complex system of interlocking bronze gears. It had dials, pointers, inscriptions, a mechanical language of astronomy. This was not decoration. This was calculation. The Antikythera mechanism could track cycles of the sun and moon. It could predict eclipses. It followed calendar cycles. It may have displayed information about the timing of athletic games. It was, in essence, an ancient analog computer, a machine made more than 2,000 years ago. And here is the shocking part. Nothing with comparable mechanical complexity is known from Europe for well over 1,000 years afterward. That does not mean it was alien. It does not mean it came from a lost technological empire. But it does mean ancient Greek engineers reached a level of precision that once seemed almost unbelievable. The device forces us to imagine workshops we have never found. Masters cutting bronze teeth by hand. Astronomers translating the motion of heaven into ratios. Philosophers, mathematicians, and craftsmen working together to make the sky turn inside a wooden box. Think about that. Before telescopes, before electricity, before modern factories, someone built a machine that could model cosmic time. Some believe the Antikythera mechanism is only the surviving example of a whole tradition of ancient machines. If one device existed, perhaps others existed too. Perhaps they were melted down, lost at sea, destroyed in wars, or simply decayed beyond recognition. Others argue that the mechanism was rare, maybe even unique, an elite object made for education, display, or prestige. Scientists suggest its existence fits within what we know of Hellenistic astronomy and mathematics. The Greeks understood cycles. They studied the moon. They developed geometry and mechanical devices. The mechanism is astonishing, but not magic. And yet even the scientific explanation feels almost magical, because the real wonder is not that it breaks the laws of science. It does not. The wonder is that it breaks our laziness. It destroys the comfortable idea that ancient people were simple. The Antikythera mechanism shows us minds as sharp as ours, hands as skilled as ours, curiosity as deep as ours. It reminds us that history is not a ladder where every generation is automatically smarter than the last. Knowledge can rise. Knowledge can vanish. A machine can be built, lost, forgotten, and then rediscovered 2,000 years later by people who thought they were the first to understand complexity. And that may be the most haunting truth of all. Not that ancient artifacts should not exist, but that our picture of the past is always incomplete. Every artifact in this story sits between two temptations. One temptation is to believe too much, to see a wooden bird and claim airplanes, to see a jar and imagine electric cities, to see a map and invent lost continents, to see a bronze object and build a fantasy around it. The other temptation is to believe too little, to reduce every mystery until nothing wondrous remains, to assume ancient people could not experiment, imagine, calculate, or create beyond our expectations, to treat the past as a lesser version of the present. The truth lives somewhere in the tension between those extremes. Science does not kill mystery, it refines it. It removes the easy answers and leaves us with deeper questions. The Saqqara bird may not prove ancient flight, but it proves that humans looked at birds and imagined the sky. The Baghdad battery may not prove lost electricity, but it shows how close ancient materials could come to invisible forces. The Piri-Reis map may not show Antarctica, but it reveals a world of moving knowledge, copied coastlines, and forgotten sources. The Roman dodecahedron may never reveal its purpose, but it proves that even the Roman world still keeps secrets. And the Antikythera mechanism does not prove impossible science. It proves possible genius. Maybe that is more powerful. Because the greatest mystery is not hidden in aliens, lost superweapons, or impossible machines. It is hidden in human beings, in our ability to observe, to dream, to misunderstand, to build, to forget, and to rediscover. Somewhere beneath the earth, more objects are waiting, in sealed tombs, under collapsed temples, beneath oceans, inside museum drawers where no one has looked closely for decades. Most will have ordinary explanations. Some will become famous. A few may force us to change what we thought we knew, and when they do, we will feel that familiar chill. The feeling that history is deeper than memory, that science is not a wall but a lantern, and that beyond its light, the darkness is not empty. It is full of questions. Perhaps the past is not trying to tell us that science is wrong. Perhaps it is telling us that certainty is fragile. That knowledge can disappear, that civilizations can reach heights we fail to recognize because we are searching for ourselves in their ruins. A gear in a shipwreck, a bird in a tomb, a jar in the dust, a map on parchment. A bronze shape with 12 silent faces. They do not give us final answers. They give us something better, a reason to keep looking. Because the Earth is old, humanity is brilliant, and the story is not finished. Factual anchors used. The Antikythera mechanism's 1901 shipwreck discovery, geared astronomical functions, and approximate dating are supported by Britannica and other summaries. The Saqqara bird flight interpretation remains unconfirmed in aerodynamic research. The Piri Reis Antarctica claim is widely disputed. Roman dodecahedra remain archaeologically unexplained, and the Baghdad battery interpretation is debated rather than settled.